Okay guys, welcome back to Parent Paints Minis. As you can probably tell from this angle so far, we're doing something a little different today. Obviously normally I'm painting minis, that's the title of the YouTube channel, but painting isn't my only hobby. I worked in a lot of kitchens, putting myself through school and early on as an adult just making ends meet before I found working in medicine and working in the hospital. And so I love to cook. I enjoy cooking. One of the things that I really love making for friends and family, and just one of my favorite meals in general, is chicken wings. And so I make a homemade buffalo sauce that I like to have with my chicken wings. And so today we're going to make that sauce. I'm all out, and I wanted some wings for dinner tonight. So I thought I'd make a batch of this buffalo sauce. I make a lot of it, and I usually store it. It stores really well in the fridge in like a 32-ounce mason jar. So I make quite a big batch. Usually there's enough to toss your night's wings in, and then still save a full jar of the buffalo sauce for later. So I'm using just a stationary camera today. We can see most of what I need to do right here on the stove top. I've got most of my ingredients out here. So it does start with quite a bit of butter, which I've just kind of been letting get to kind of room temperature while I set everything up. It's best if that's fully thawed. You don't want it to be frozen. And unfortunately, two of mine did have to come out of the freezer because I didn't realize that the other brand that I'd had before only had 2 sticks left. So you need full 2 cups of butter. So that's 4 sticks for the recipe that I'm using to make the amount that I usually make. So this recipe has been tweaked, shifted, changed over probably a good 15 years. I think I first made my first homemade buffalo sauce probably about 15 years ago. And so some of you who know me for real, who don't just follow my channel, who've had me over for Super Bowl parties and just hanging out, whatever, have seen me make this before, or have at least got to taste it in person, so you know how it's changed over the years and how good it is. So I'm just going to quickly go through the ingredients that are necessary, because once we get going, it all kind of happens pretty quickly. I'm not going to... It does need to simmer once everything's together. It needs to simmer for about a half an hour. I'm obviously not going to record the whole half hour there. So we'll just be up until we get everything combined. And I can show you a little bit of how temperamental it can be, because you have to keep an eye on it at all times and keep it stirring so that the butter doesn't separate from the rest of your seasonings and sauces. So I already mentioned it starts with the base of 2 cups of butter. So I'm going to just go ahead and get that in here and let that start melting. I'm going to put it on a very low heat to start with, just so that that butter can start to melt. That's your first thing you want to do is get that melted. I was going to measure off all of the seasonings before I started this, and I don't know why I didn't do that. So now you guys are going to have to bear with me as I measure out everything. I'm probably going to pause this video actually at certain points, just because I find it very frustrating to try to measure things out. I'm very OCD about getting it exactly perfect. And then I have to wash my spoons in between seasonings. I can't use the same spoon. So it's just one of those things that's, I don't know, it's just a weird quirk of mine. And so I think that I might actually pause this once I get this butter going. And we'll just edit it so that you guys don't even know. And I'm going to go ahead and measure those out, because it's going to be annoying for everybody involved, I think, if I don't. So let me see if I can figure out how to just pause this video. Or maybe I just stop it and I can splice the 2 videos together later. I wish I was better at video editing, to be honest. Actually, I'm just going to leave it going. It's just going to go and I'll edit out the time because that's easier than splicing two videos together. I can just cut it in. So let's see here. Pay no attention to my cheap plastic Walmart measuring spoons. They are a result of my divorce. When I was buying new things, I did not spend the most amount of money getting new things. So first thing we're gonna need is we're gonna need a one and a half teaspoons of cayenne pepper. I've found that over the years I've become less and less picky about the brand of seasonings that I use. I've always been partial to the McCormick seasonings. I find that they're usually fresh. They taste good, and they're not terribly expensive. So it's a good balance between cost and flavor, and so that's a good way to go. But especially being a single guy, I've found that I splurge less on expensive seasonings and go with sometimes the cheaper Signature Select or, you know, Great Value or whatever, just because it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal to not. So like I said, we need 1.5 teaspoons of cayenne pepper. So I'm just going to put all my seasonings into a bowl together because they go into the sauce all at the same time. So the measurements on these are basically to taste. So you can go a little over or a little under based on what your preferences are. When it comes to the spicy seasonings like cayenne and red pepper flakes and the Carolina Reaper powder that I use, I usually go a little heavier on the measurements of those. So I just did 3 teaspoons of cayenne pepper there, and that's obviously a little more than that because those were slightly heaped teaspoons. So after the cayenne, we need 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. So I'm gonna take a paper towel here. I'm gonna rinse off and clean my measuring spoon so that we can get that. And you'll see me do that several times for the rest of these. So again, 1/2 teaspoon. I go a little heavier so you can see that's a little bit bigger than just a flat scraped off measure there. These are gonna be, it's gonna add a lot of flavor to your buffalo sauce. After that, I do 1/4 teaspoon of this Carolina Reaper powder. This is my preference. Before I found this powder, I didn't ever used to add this, and it became more of a mild buffalo sauce than it is now. Now with the addition of this Carolina Reaper powder, this is more of a hot buffalo. Try to get it broken up. Sometimes this powder clumps a bit. You don't want any clumps. It won't mix well in your sauce, and it's kind of annoying. So, you know, just a lightly heaped 1/4 teaspoon of Carolina Reaper powder. Be careful touching anything after that. It gets everywhere. I will probably sneeze several times during this video because it's pretty intense. So I'm gonna rinse that one off too, so we have it for the rest of these. Okay, and then after that we need, let's see here, we got garlic powder, onion powder, and a little bit of paprika. Salt is just a taste. I use unsalted butter because it lets me kind of manage the amount of salt that this has at the end. So I just got it there to add later. But for now, we're just going to give this a quick stir, let that butter melt a little more evenly. So we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, which I desperately need to buy more of, apparently. I think I have another jar in there, so if this is too dry, I might just toss it. No, it's okay. It's just a little dried up. We'll break up the clumps there. And we will add... And so with this, I'm a little more even. You're going to add Oh, I did not mean to add that in there. That's not going to hurt anything. I meant to put it in this bowl, but I wasn't paying enough attention. I was thinking about the next step once I get these seasonings measured out, which is adding some actual garlic cloves. I usually do fresh garlic, but I didn't have any, and I keep jarred garlic in the fridge just for such an occasion where I find that I need it and don't have fresh. Sometimes I won't cook for a while, and my fresh garlic will go bad. It'll start to sprout or turn really mushy or brown. And so then I need something without having to run to the store. So that's why I keep this on hand. That's why I have it today. But this recipe is much better with fresh garlic. So if you have the time, if you have the garlic on hand, mince it up yourself as finely as you can. The smaller your mince, the better your sauce is going to turn out. So keep that in mind, and do yourself the favor of mincing it yourself. So after that, it's just a little pinch of onion powder. I usually go about 1/8 of a teaspoon when it comes to that pinch, but I don't have my 1/8 teaspoon measuring spoon right now, so I'm just going to take the 1/4 teaspoon, try to get about 1/2 of it. It's just for a little bit of flavor, so you don't need that much. I need to stop measuring directly over my pan because I'm going to end up pouring all this directly in there, but that's where the camera's centered, so I keep aiming for that. And then the last seasoning that you need is just a tiny pinch of paprika. A smoked paprika works really well. I sometimes like a good sweet paprika as well. So you can kind of change it up as you're feeling for your specific tastes. But generally I just use the McCormick's basic paprika. No smoked paprika, no sweet paprika, anything like that. Just the basic, and that works really well to give it that kind of smoky flavor that it needs. Like I said, I got salt for a little later. We'll taste it and we will go from there. So we have all of our seasonings here right now. Let's break up that little bit of garlic powder there. And then this butter's almost fully melted. Once it's melted, we're going to add in our garlic. We want to turn up the heat just a little bit more by now, because we're going to want that butter to be warm enough to actually kind of poach the garlic, which is another reason why the fresh garlic works so well. I have in the past, and this is probably the best buffalo sauce I've ever had, but it's just way more work than I'm willing to put into it for a sauce, and it doesn't make it that much better that it's worth the effort. But I have roasted garlic, like a full bulb of garlic wrapped in foil with olive oil, in the oven, let it get all nice and caramelized and just beautiful, and then just smush the bulbs into a paste and add that to this, instead of letting the garlic poach in the butter, which is what I am doing right now, and with what I do most of the time, is just let it kind of poach. So let's let this butter kind of melt. I should have been a little more proactive in taking those frozen sticks out of the freezer. They are not melting very fast. And the longer you let your garlic poach, the better. You don't want it to burn, obviously, so you don't want your temperature too high. There's nothing in the world worse than burned garlic. That bitter taste that it adds to things is awful. And so you definitely don't want to do that. So don't put your butter up too high that it's going to actually be like burning the butter or burning the garlic. It should just be a light, temperature just enough to keep everything melted and all of that. So I think that's melted enough. So we're going to go ahead and add this in. It's just 1 tablespoon of, garlic. So I'm going to get in there, get 2 of these half tablespoons. And I know some people think that's a lot of garlic. I don't heat my garlic that much when it comes to measuring out of a jar, and it's mostly just based on the fragrance of your cloves and things like that when you're using fresh. So use as much or as little garlic as you want. Some people really like garlicky buffalo sauce, and I do. I prefer a little bit of garlic flavor in my buffalo sauce. I think it's a key component of the sauce, and I think it adds a lot. Oh, and I almost just knocked over my camera. So let's hope that didn't lose focus. I'm gonna check our stream here and see how it's looking. I had to switch screens on my phone for a second, and so I lost the video, but it looks like it's okay. Looks like we still have a good view of what we're doing. So let's go ahead and just give that another quick stir. I'm gonna let this butter keep melting, let that garlic kind of poach in there for a little bit while I put away these seasonings and clear up some space on my workstation. I don't like working crowded, and so we're gonna do that. While I'm doing that, there are a few things else that we need. We have just plain distilled white vinegar. I've already measured it out. It's a little over 1/4 cup. I use about 1/4 cup and then another 2 tablespoons on top of that. It's just the right amount that I've found over, throughout the time that I've been making this, to give it the right flavor and all that. Worcestershire sauce is another one that I like. And I apologize to my British friends for the Americanized pronunciation there, but at least I didn't say Worcestershire sauce. So, we're just going to put these seasonings up here in the cupboard, which is where I keep them, and clear off some of this space. The jarred garlic goes in the fridge. So we're going to throw that in there. And then the last thing that I have here that we're going to add into this is a cayenne pepper based hot sauce. You can use whatever ones you like. Usually I make my own, but because I wasn't planning to make this, I didn't go to the store and buy all the ingredients that I normally get. I didn't get the fresh garlic, things like that. So any pre-made cayenne based sauce that you like will work for this. You can use Frank's or Tabasco, whatever you really like, depending on your own preferences. My personal one that I make for myself is basically it's just a copycat Frank's. It's a little different because I add the cayenne or the Carolina Reaper powder into my sauce too, so it's a little hotter. I actually might add a little more of the Carolina Reaper powder to this sauce because I just realized that the base sauce that I'm using doesn't have it, and usually it does when I make my own. So I might pull that back out and add just a pinch more of the Carolina pepper, or the Carolina Reaper pepper seasoning. So we're just going to take just a little bit from that and add that in. Just a little more, just to have a little extra heat. I like my buffalo sauce to be a lot hotter anyway, so that'll be good. As we can see, the butter is finally all melted. That garlic is starting to really infuse into that, and so we're just gonna let that stir in and just give it a second. I've got the heat right now just a little under a medium. It's like a medium low. Let that really just get warmed up before you add anything else. Really let that garlic kind of infuse. You should smell it before you add anything else. Like, the overwhelming scent right now should be garlic. It should smell like Nona's kitchen if you're Italian. Just a lot of garlic. Alright, so then once you've done that, we're just gonna get all this together and we're just gonna sprinkle that in. I like to try to mix it around because you don't want clumps. So try to get it to spread as evenly as you can throughout there. And then just stir that all in. Now, the only annoying thing about this recipe is that you have to basically stir it like a lot, because that butter is going to start to separate. Especially when you have a frozen butter stick like I did, the water content is a lot higher than if you have fresh butter or if it's at room temperature when you start it. And that's why you don't want to let your temperature get away from you on the stove. Keep it nice and low. We are just trying to slowly incorporate everything together so that you don't have any kind of broken sauce. Right now we got our seasonings coming together. We're really letting the heat start to open up the fragrances from those spices. Your red pepper flakes are going to start to cook, really infuse into that. That Carolina Reaper powder right now should be hitting your nose. The cayenne pepper, you should have a little bit of that smoky scent from the paprika. And obviously that garlic should still be kind of your primary scent at this point. Especially if you used fresh garlic, it's going to be all you can smell. Once you've got everything kind of incorporated and really let it start to come together, we can up the temperature a bit because we're going to add in our hot sauce. And so I've got 2 2/3 cups worth of hot sauce to add to this. And like I said, this amount that I came up with was designed to be used that night. So like if I was going to make wings for friends or family tonight, or in this case, I'm making it for myself for dinner tonight, then I would toss my wings in the sauce, and then whatever's left would go into the jar. And usually I have about 32 ounces worth of sauce left over. So just slowly incorporate this in. You can see that butter is already separated on top. So we want to make sure that as we're adding this in, we're incorporating that. You won't have that streaky, oily look on top by the time you're done. It'll be a nice creamy buffalo sauce with gorgeous flavor, and it's going to be amazing because you can keep it in the fridge basically indefinitely. The amount of vinegar that we add to this, the fact that the base hot sauce is a vinegar hot sauce anyway, it just helps it keep for a very long time in the fridge. And the longer it keeps, the better the flavor gets. It incorporates together better, and it's just going to be a richer, more enjoyable buffalo sauce. So it's worth making a big batch like this because you can keep it, and then whenever you want wings, you just throw them in your fryer. Well, in my case, it's a lot more involved. I will do a video for my wings one of these days where I show you how I make my wing seasoning, and then the way that I season and bake off my wings before I take them out of the oven, and then I fry them for just a quick 3 to 5 minutes depending on how fatty the wings are, so that they can get nice and crispy, and then I toss them in my sauce. So I'll do that video at another time. I'm not doing that tonight. I'm just going to throw this sauce over some frozen boneless wings just because it's just me. I'm not impressing anybody today. I'm just trying to make something to eat, and that sounded good, and so that's what I'm going to end up eating for dinner. So as you can see now, I'm stirring this together, and you can see it's already starting to look really shiny, really glossy from that butter. It's starting to look really smooth. That oil is starting to incorporate together, and we're just going to let this simmer. The last thing I do need to add in is some Worcestershire sauce, and that's kind of just to taste. I mean, I've tried to measure it out before. Usually it's about 1 teaspoon, but it's totally up to you guys what you like. I've just shaken it in. I love Worcestershire sauce, so I don't mind a little extra. I think that the flavor, the umami you get from the Worcestershire is really important to this. And once you get this completely mixed together, all of that oil is incorporated together, that's when we're going to slowly whisk in our vinegar. So just make sure you get it all the way incorporated, and that takes a little bit of attention to where the oil is pooling. Make sure you pull it away from the sides. You know, just a light whisk. You don't have to use a mixer or anything like that. It's just softly mix it together. God, I wish you guys could smell this. It smells incredible right now, by the way, guys. So just keep mixing it. Keep it nice and smooth. And then once you get to about this phase, you're going to start to see little bubbles coming up. I've got it on a 4 right now. Obviously, every stovetop is a little different, but it's just a little bit below the halfway point for my stove. And then I'm just going to slowly just add in the vinegar. Don't let it break your butter and your hot sauce, though. You want it to incorporate and not separate. So don't go too fast. And it doesn't always separate, especially if you did a good job mixing it to begin with. And if you had melted or like room temperature butter, that makes it easier to keep it from separating. So you need a little less attention in those situations. But you know, just get that vinegar in there. That's going to really up the heat value. It's going to give it that tingle on your tongue when you taste it. And like I said, vinegar helps preserve. You're basically pickling your sauce at this point. And so, yeah, you can smell that throughout the house at this point. And you're just going to want to just keep stirring that. After a while, once you know it's completely incorporated and it's nice and smooth and you don't see any oil on there at all, you can take a break. And at this point, you're going to let it come to a simmer. You want it to start to bubble. You're going to see the oil start to separate a little bit as it bubbles. If it's not bubbling as quickly as you want it to, you can turn the heat up a little bit, but don't boil your sauce. You just want it to simmer. If you boil this sauce, it will not taste good. It will taste almost burned, as all the ingredients in it don't really do well under like extremely high heat. It starts to break them down, it starts to burn them, and it starts to create this bitter flavor. So let it come to temperature nice and slow. You're doing yourself a favor by taking your time with this one. The longer you take and let this come up, you can see in the middle there how it's starting to bubble. Let me see if I can move this camera down. You can see right there, it's starting to bubble right in the middle. A nice light bubble, and that's what we want. We want it to do that all around the whole thing. And once we start to see that oil from the butter start to separate away, it's going to be a darker, redder color. Once that starts to separate away, we'll remix it together, and then we'll keep going, and we'll turn the temperature down to an even lower simmer. So we're going to give it a couple minutes, and it should catch up to us here shortly. This temperature is where I usually cook it at, and it works really well. So I'm not going to turn it up. I'm not going to mess with it. I'm going to get a Dr. Pepper while I wait, because I'm an addict. You know, beer might not be bad right now either, but okay, so as we can see, that's starting to do what I said. That darker red part's starting to show, and it's pulling out to the sides. We're going to give it about another 30 seconds before I really get in there and start messing with it. I really want you guys to see that dark red as it comes in and starts to separate out. I can't tell from this video if you guys can see what I'm saying there, but I really hope you can see it, because that's kind of the most crucial part there, is getting to that point. So we're right there. I'm going to open my soda while I wait, because I want to drink. And we're going to just slowly start stirring this back together. That foam that's created on top there, that's what's going to give you that creamy texture. It's like whipped cream kind of. It starts to turn into this thicker foam, and you want to reincorporate that back in. So make sure you do yourself a favor. Stretch before you go. You don't want any arm cramps, because you might be stirring for a while. It takes a while for that to really come back into that sauce. Get around all the sides, pull it into the middle, and break that foam back down so that it can reincorporate in. If you don't do that step, you have a very thin buffalo sauce. You could, of course, take this off the heat right now, and you could jar it up, put it in the fridge, and it's going to be fine. I mean, this is a good recipe for a buffalo sauce just from a flavor standpoint, just from an ingredient standpoint. You've got all the flavors you want in a buffalo sauce really right there for you. It's just about awakening them. You just want to wake those flavors up. You want to give them time to develop, and that comes from letting it simmer. It's like a good, you know, spaghetti sauce or something. The longer you let it simmer, or a good soup, the longer it simmers, the more that flavor is just going to incorporate, the more it's going to reach every, you know, bit of potential that those ingredients have. You know, that garlic's going to really get soft, so when you bite into it, you don't get any raw garlic flavor. And I've had that happen where I didn't simmer it long enough, especially if I didn't mince my garlic small enough, and I'll be eating a chicken wing and there's a chunk of garlic on it, And it's still almost raw because I didn't simmer it long enough. So really do yourself a favor and take the time to simmer this sauce. I don't ever pull it off the stove until it has been at this point for another half an hour. So right now it's 4:28. I'm not pulling the sauce off the stove until 5 o'clock. So we're just going to keep stirring, and we're just going to keep that from separating. We're going to, anytime we see a large amount of that foam, we're going to reincorporate it. We're going to pull it back to the middle and really get it back in there. And then here in about 2 minutes, about another minute or so, I'm going to turn this down from 4 to about a 2. It's just enough to keep it warm, just enough to keep a little bit of light bubbling, and that way it doesn't just sit there and do nothing, and it's moving, and you'll start to see, the key there is to always have that butter wanting to separate from the rest of the sauce. You want to keep it on the verge of separating at all times, and then pull it back together. So you can let it set for a minute, wait till you start to see that dark red from the oil coming out again, and then just stir it back together. You don't have to stir the whole time consistently, but you do want to be close by. You want to have eyes on it, and you want to be ready to stir when you need to. So you can see now how much faster it's getting to this point where it needs to be stirred again. You got that foam forming, you got that oil pulling out, and so now we're safe to turn that down. I'm going to go ahead and turn that down to a 2 and reincorporate this back in, and give it a good stir. I do miss my good pans from before I got divorced. Those were amazing pans. Shout out to Hexclad if you have a chance to buy those, if you can afford them. Best pans I've ever had in my life. Well worth the investment, and I plan to get more in the future when I get more on my feet. If Gordon Ramsay sees this video and wants to send me a set, I'm not going to be upset about that. But in the meantime, I continue to work my day job at the hospital, and I cook for fun, I paint for fun, and I share my hobbies with you guys. Being a single guy, I don't have a lot of opportunity to interact with a lot of people, or to do anything fun with a lot of people. I just moved to a new city. I don't know a lot of people now. And so you guys are really it for me, and I know that sounds a little bit sad, but, I've got some friends I work with and things like that. I'll go out for a drink or hang out, whatever, but, we don't have a lot of the same hobbies. I haven't had a chance to meet other painters or other cooks or people who just like to eat food and want to come over for a, dinner party or something like that. So in the meantime, I'm just going to continue to share my hobbies with you guys. I'm going to put this video on Perrin Paints Minis. I know it's not a mini. I will create a playlist of all of my cooking videos so that they're separated from the rest of my painting videos. And hopefully that will make it easier for people who just want to see me paint to watch my painting videos, or those who just want to see me cook to watch my cooking videos, without me having to manage 2 completely different channels, because I don't have that kind of energy. I don't even like managing the one. I kind of wish I had a influencer friend who knew more about things like that could handle that for me, because I don't enjoy it. I don't even really like uploading my videos, because that in and of itself takes a bit of work, and I'm not sure I always do the best job with editing and getting those videos ready to go up on YouTube. So it would be nice to be able to put some kind of music behind this, but I don't really understand music copyright laws and the way YouTube does it. I've seen some videos that have, popular modern music on, and I assume they've cleared that somehow, but I don't know how or whatever. And so for now, you just get to listen to me talk and the sound of a whisk, which honestly sometimes is music to my ears. I do love whisking. So right now we're pretty much at the point where it's just going to be this for another half an hour. So I'm going to let you guys take one quick look at this again, see that creaminess, see the way that it's kind of incorporating and it's bubbling. I'm going to continue to stir that to make sure that it stays completely formed and it doesn't like break or anything like that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's not anything special, nothing unique, nothing that nobody's ever done before. You know, obviously every great chef in the world has a buffalo sauce recipe, and I'm definitely not one of those. I have been told I'm one of the best cooks people have ever eaten, but that's by people who I think might be a little biased. But I do consider myself to be a pretty good cook myself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys will like and subscribe it. And if you want to see more cooking videos, leave me a comment. Tell me what you liked about this format. Tell me what you'd like to see different. Yeah, so I look forward to doing another video for you guys. I think the next one will be the chicken wings to go with this sauce, you know, when I get around to making a batch.